I grew up in a school and they always said free speech is against the voting ballot. And I turned 23 and I'm just witnessing a completely different world. Wow. Free speech does not matter to any of these
So nice to see and connect with all of you. Now, before we get started, if you haven't tried the wine, feel free to go to the back to get some. I made the wine myself over this past year using a Texas native grape called Mustang grapes. And so, even with all the uniqueness that Austin has to offer, I don't think there's anything quite like this. So, especially if you're visiting or South by, feel free to try it. And you may just make my presentation a little bit more interesting. But I'm really excited to get to share ATX and Handshake with you all. This is all about making the web better by empowering internet users and to also create a positive, supportive community. So let's get started. Here's what I'm going to touch on in my talk this evening. We're going to get into a little bit about what Handshake is before diving into .tx, seeing that we're here in Texas. And besides my talk, we'll also have some others from the Handshake community share about why they're so passionate about Handshake and different ways that they're contributing to the Handshake ecosystem. And then we'll end it with a giveaway. So if you haven't signed up in the back, make sure you put your name down, and we're going to be giving away some .tx domains as well as HNS, the cryptocurrency, and maybe a few other things as well. A little bit about myself. My interest in decentralized technologies dates back to 2013 when I led discussion on Bitcoin at Baylor University. Later on, I graduated with a master's in real estate development from the University of Utah. And while there, I delivered a graduate capstone presentation on blockchain and real estate. And my professional background consists of working at real estate tech startups, where I had various roles ranging from customer success to sales and from management to operations. And over the past 4 years, my interest shifted from decentralizing money to decentralizing the web. And that led me to discover Handshake and starting ATX. And with ATX, I'm focused on establishing .tx as the domain for Texas. A little bit about Handshake. So .tx exists on the Handshake protocol, which was created by Bitcoin OGs like the Hearst.io crew and Joseph Poon, who co-created the Lightning Network. Maybe some of you here have heard of the Lightning Network. It's Bitcoin's most prominent scaling solution. And so Joseph Poon designed that as well as Handshake's blockchain. And similar to Bitcoin, Handshake has no company or foundation. It's proof of work and is entirely community-led, which is why I'm here. And if I could describe Handshake in a few words, it's decentralized naming. So think about the way that you currently use the web today, going to different websites, as well as maybe you're on a few different social platforms and you have usernames for that. So Handshake is a decentralized version of that. And the goal for Handshake is to be the base of the decentralized web. In other words, Handshake aims to be the base of the web that you know and use today. So quite aspirational. Now, while Bitcoin is decentralizing money, which is arguably the most important event of our lifetime, most people are forgetting that the current web is centralized, with an entity called ICANN being the gatekeeper of domains. There are centralized certificate authorities and a few corporations that control our data and user experience. Handshake fixes this by decentralizing the DNS root zone of the web. Now, Handshake isn't here to compete with Bitcoin. They both focus on two different things. And I foresee a future where regular internet users are going to be interacting with Bitcoin and Handshake, whether or not they realize it. Now, for all the nature lovers out there, let's use a tree to break down the namespace. So if the web is a tree, the DNS root zone here is literally the root. And though the root cannot be seen, it gives life to the rest of the tree. And simultaneously, the root zone is the central point of failure that can bring down the entire internet and is managed by an entity called ICANN or IONA. Okay? So Handshake's mission of decentralizing the DNS root zone for the web is the best attempt the world has ever seen to truly bring about a decentralized web. Now, I'm not sure how many here are familiar with the internet's history, but it originally started out to be decentralized. That was the intent. But it wasn't able to do so. It wasn't able to scale due to the technical limitations at the time. Well, fast forward to today, we have those technologies available, and that of Handshake, other blockchains, and other technologies out there. So here's DNS, and then also HNS, the framework of both of them. So DNS is what you currently use today, your current web experience. And you see that there's kind of one focal point where everything depends and relies upon. Compared to HNS, it's decentralized. You have miners all around the world that are securing Handshake's blockchain and providing security, as well as nodes that are validating transactions and updating DNS records. So instead of having a central point of failure, which can lead to censorship or having half the internet go down anytime, which has happened a few times over the past few years, having a web secured by a blockchain makes it anti-fragile and increases security. Now, Handshake isn't here to replace the internet. I'm not here to sell you on that. That's not Handshake's focus. The top 100,000 websites and existing TLDs like .com have been reserved for the rightful owners on Handshake. So it can truly be said that Handshake is here to extend the current internet. All right, well, getting into ATX and .tx. ATX's mission, which I'm the founder of, is to bring the decentralized web to the masses, specifically for Texans and Texas businesses. We partner with registrars like Gateway, which Steve Webb is here behind, and make it as easy as possible to own your name on the decentralized web. Now, for the first time, you can finally identify as Texan online. But .tx stands for much more than just Texas. .tx also stands for transactions. We're in this digital age where the majority of transactions occur online already, and that's only going to continue to increase in the coming years. So I see .tx as having a major role as it relates to cryptocurrencies or existing financial or payment platforms, or .tx can be used as, for individuals sending or receiving payments peer-to-peer. And besides that, .tx also stands for treatment, which relates to hospitals or medical fields. And then lastly, freedom is something that's really important to many in the Handshake community and myself. And so I want .tx to stand for freedom, because in essence, Handshake helps ensure freedom online. But I want to leave this question to you all to think about tonight and the weeks to come. What does .tx mean to you? And it's really up to the community to decide. Here are several different use cases for .tx names. First and foremost, .tx provides the general domain and email functions that we're accustomed to. So you can have merch.tx as a website, or if you own like hey.tx like I do, I can set up unlimited emails off of that. So it can be like null@hey.tx. Interestingly, if you own a .tx domain, you can also just have an email on top of the domain itself. So it could be like null@tx, which I think is pretty cool because of how short it is compared to traditional emails out there. But I want to be clear though that .tx is so much more than just a domain. It's a name. What does that mean? I believe that .tx will be the digital identity for all Texans. So .tx can represent digital ownership of items such as NFTs or digital currency. Here's an example. Let's say we have Bob.tx and he's on PayPal sending funds to Alice.tx. And Atlas.tx receives those funds on Venmo. Okay, you can't currently do that. Those platforms, Venmo and PayPal, don't currently communicate with each other. And that's how most of the internet is today. We have siloed platforms. A major part of the decentralized web is to remove barriers and connect everyone and everything together. And so along those same lines, you can also use .tx names as login and as a username across all of your accounts. So I can be null.tx on a decentralized Twitter as well as a decentralized Instagram. One name walks the entire internet for you. And I was listening to a podcast recently, as Lex Friedman's podcast. He had this guy named Mark Zuckerberg on for Meta. I'm not sure if anyone here has heard of him, but Zuckerberg is really into the Metaverse. And he was stating on this podcast that there are 3 different types of avatars in the Metaverse. The first of which is where you have a cartoon version of yourself. The second avatar is where you can be like a dinosaur, which I guess sounds pretty cool. And then the third avatar, and this one is still a few years out, and this third type of avatar is where you can have a real life-like version of yourself. So imagine me as I stand right now, but in the Metaverse. And Zuckerberg has stated that there is a problem with this type of avatar that still needs to be solved. And it is, how do we know they are who they say they are? Meaning, what if I waltz into the Metaverse, not as I look right now, but as Mark Zuckerberg himself? How do we know I am who I say I am? And as I was listening to this, I immediately thought, Handshake fixes this. Avatars need names. Nothing exists without a name, and that's for the physical world as well as the virtual world. And so no one can be null.tx but me. So if anyone's friends with Zuckerberg on Meta, feel free to pass that along to him. Tell him that Handshake solves this, and he can go ahead and integrate Handshake. But moving on back to reality, .tx can also be used as identification in the physical world, such as digital driver's license, for example. And with all of this, everything that I've stated so far, I just want to stress how important this is. That the first time your entire digital identity can be owned by you. And as Handshake names are programmable, meaning any developer can build on Handshake, all the platforms that you use today can integrate Handshake, the use cases really do become limitless. But enough just talking theory. I want to show you a few examples of what you can do with .tx names today. And when I say .tx, you can do it with any Handshake name. So here's hey.tx, which everyone in this room should have, should be able to showcase your personal or professional persona. And so that's what I did here. Here is creek.tx, which is a simple business website that I set up using Weebly, which is a popular website builder. And I did that through Porkbun, which is one of the registrars where .tx is listed on. And then last, what we have is using a Handshake name to log in to a news forum called Namer News, and you can be able to post messages as your Handshake name. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what is possible today, and this is just the beginning, y'all. This is just the beginning for Handshake. Handshake names also offer encrypted peer-to-peer communication. So this is useful for those that value freedom or privacy. If you don't want corporations or tyrannical government spying on or censoring you, then Handshake is here for you. And the 2 examples that I have are H&S Chat, which just came out this past month. And so with H&S Chat, I was able to log in by, with life.tx by adding a simple record to life.tx. And from there, I can be able to send and receive messages to, all these other Handshake community members from all around the world. And so you can pull out your phone right now and go to hns.chat if you want to experience this yourself. They basically are issuing free Handshake names, so you can be able to try this out if you don't already have one. And interestingly, one of the Handshake members, he messaged me with an alien emoji. So you can use emojis as like handshake names as well, which I think is pretty cool. So if you pull out your phone right now, find that alien face emoji. Somebody owns that now on the web, and that's made possible because of Handshake. And I really do think that in the coming years, as digital identity becomes more important and you can actually have full ownership, I think more people are going to kind of identify with these emojis. So you can do it on top of Handshake itself, or you can get just your regular emojis through .tx as well. So it can be like a heart emoji .tx. I think it's just going to be a fun way, and it's going to increase with popularity down the line. And then last, what we have is hmail.app, which is a decentralized email service where I was able to create an account using a Handshake name. And so there's that as well. Whether or not either of these rise up and make it to the mainstream, or they can be used as proof of concepts by your communication platforms that you use today, hopefully this gives an idea of what is possible and what's coming down the road. All right. Well, .tx is also about establishing a brand for Texas online. As for Texans, we're very proud with where we're from and take every opportunity to let others know. And now, for the first time, you can finally, showcase your origin with a .tx domain for Texas businesses as well as Texas individuals. I really do foresee .tx as being the digital home for more than 30 million Texans and over 800,000 Texas businesses. And as the state of Texas and citizens therein are advocates of innovation and proud of its strength and independence, I do believe that .tx will be adopted as the domain for Texas. I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight or tomorrow, but I believe that it will happen at some point. And you can imagine the benefits for society as well as for early community members for when that does happen. Now, here are some value propositions for Texans or individuals like us in the room. And this applies not only to .tx, but also just for Handshake names in general. First off, with the decentralized web, it's all about establishing property rights online. Now, I call it the decentralized web. Some people call this the Web 3, but I call it the decentralized web. I also kind of coin it as like the age of ownership that we're entering into. That's how I would describe it. And once you own your name, then it becomes possible to own your data. And what that means basically is you are no longer the product. Okay? And data ownership has a lot of dollar signs attached. So there was a study done a few years ago where they were kind of an user of Google's product and buying the value of their data worth to Google. And it was worth around $200 a year per user. And so now with the decentralized web, we're going to be, heading into, something where, instead of your data, kind of starting with corporations, the data is going to start with you, the user. And you're going to have two choices to make as a user. You can be over here and say, I'm going to keep my data, I'm going to maintain sovereignty and privacy and control my online experience, and that's fine. Or you can be over here and say, all right, Google, I'm going to give you my data, but you're going to have to pay me for it first. And you can do that with Google, Facebook, all the other ones. And by doing so, you're going to get paid several $1,000s in passive income every year. Hopefully, this is just another prime example of the decentralized web empowering internet users. But moving on past that, I know we're getting a little technical and all of that with the decentralized web, but I promise that this is also still going to offer the convenience that we're all accustomed to. As you saw earlier with the Handshake name, you can have single-click login to your accounts. And no longer do you have to have dozens of usernames and passwords to access your accounts. All you need technically is one name. And going off of that, Handshake is also going to increase the security for internet users. So only you can be you. No one else has your name but you. And so it's going to be a lot more difficult for accounts to be hacked as well. And then last, Handshake names are censorship resistant. Freedom of speech and freedom of expression are crucial for the advancement of society. And so Handshake helps ensure that. Now here are some separate value propositions for Texas businesses or businesses in general. I'm focusing on Texas. I believe that .tx domains can enhance a business. Instead of having come to my grocery store tx.com because .com is so oversaturated, they can simply own grocery.tx, which is a lot more succinct and still clear about what the business is about. Back in the 90s was the time to get those oneword.com domains that today are worth 6 and 7 figures, and seeing that .tx just recently launched, now is the time to get those premium oneword.tx domains at an affordable price. And off of that, I would say that business innovation is also going to increase due to Handshake names and the many use cases that are available. And what I've talked about today, I've touched on some things that are a little bit different than domains, but there's so many other possibilities out there, some that we already know about, but then also other possibilities that will be thought of in the coming years with these Handshake names as well. So the possibilities are really limitless. Here quickly are several different ways to access .tx names. You can find this at heytx.io/resources. I want to be clear that you can be able to access Handshake websites from any device, any browser, but right now you have to download a Handshake resolver to be able to access them. So here are a few different Handshake resolvers listed in order to be able to unlock the decentralized web. I would point out Beacon browser, which Steve Webb's team is behind. If you have an iPhone, go to the App Store and type in Beacon browser, download that to your phone, and that's going to be a really easy way to access Handshake names securely. And besides that, we have Opera browser, which is one of the largest, most popular browsers in the world with over 400 million users. They're going to be rolling out native Handshake integration here within the next few months. Now, at the end of the day, we want to make this as seamless as possible, right? For just all internet users, the whole goal is to have just the regular internet user to be able to access a .tx website without even realizing the difference that they're on a decentralized website. And so over the coming years, I really do think that we'll have native integration with Google Chrome and Safari, but it's just going to be important to take one step at a time until we get there. All right, well, we moved past the tech part. The next component to a decentralized protocol is community. And so something that's really important to me is bringing freedom to community members. Although Handshake doesn't have a marketing department, this isn't a no-name project. The top VCs in Silicon Valley had invested in Handshake prior to its launch. And as .tx is one of the top assets on Handshake, you can do the math yourself. There's another Handshake name called .c. So .c is the most popular single-letter Handshake name, and then .tx is the most popular two-letter Handshake name. And ice.c recently sold this past month for 5 figures, and it was just previously registered within the past year for around $10 to $20. So that's a 1000x return in a year's time. And I foresaw this years ago that this was going to be the case. And I believe now more than ever that in the coming years that there's going to be a thriving secondary marketplace for Handshake names like .tx. And perhaps Steve can touch on that if you want to ask him. But besides that, this is really about having a positive, supportive community that empowers one another in the digital and physical world. Society focuses so much on the differences that we have instead of what we have in common. So by owning a .tx name, you're really identifying with these values here. So rugged individualism within a strong, supportive community, knowing who you are and not caring what others think, forward thinking and pro-innovation, living and acting with purpose, and respecting all. Now, I'm really grateful for all of you coming this evening to learn about Handshake and .tx. This is really the beginning of what we're calling Handshake Week. So we have HandyCon, which is Handshake's second annual conference. It's starting tomorrow and going until Friday, and it's taking place from 4 p.m. to midnight Texan time. So if you're interested in doing a deep dive into Handshake, or if you just want to attend a session or two, or you want to connect with a positive entrepreneurial community, I highly recommend signing up. It's virtual and free. You can scan this QR code here, or if you have a Handshake Resolver on your phone, you can go to handshake.conference to sign up. But I'll be speaking on one of the sessions. I know Steve is going to be doing a few sessions himself, and it'd be really great to see some of you. And after HandyCon, we're going to be meeting up again here in Austin. It's called H&S and D-Webb Austin Meetup. We just started it on a monthly basis last month, and it would be really cool to be able to see y'all. It's going to be a casual hangout where we meet at different.
Alex is calling you.
Yeah, you can answer. He'll know you. But all right, yeah, that's fine. I'll call him after this. But this is basically we're meeting up at different beer gardens around Austin on a monthly basis, and of course we're going to be talking about Handshake. I can't deny that. But I want to be clear with y'all that this is really a time to be able to discuss whatever your personal interests are. Whether it relates to decentralized web to real estate, it's really a time just to be able to connect human to human. I feel like that's been lost over the past few years, and so this is a way to bring that back and be able to connect us to one another. And so this event's going to be at Easy Tiger this Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. If you're already part of the meetup page, I'll be sending out kind of like a message here over the next day after this. And then lastly, we have NamesCon. It's not taking place till late August or early September, but it's the world's largest domain conference. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is there's early bird ticket pricing that's going to be lasting for a few more days. So if you're interested in Handshake or domain investing, I highly recommend signing up. It's going to be taking place here, not just in Austin, but here in this building. And ATX will be organizing some meetups around the time because we're going to be having community members coming from all around the world for this event. All right, guys, well, we made it to the end. I just want to say that I appreciate each and every one of you for coming out this evening to learn about Handshake and .tx. And whether or not this is our first time connecting, I welcome everyone to join the .tx and Handshake community. This is not, this is about making the internet better, but not just for yourself, but for your children and your children's children. It may make sense to get a .tx domain just in case it catches on. And if enough people think the same way that .tx is the domain for Texas, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But feel free to join our Discord, follow us on Twitter, attend events like this one, and spread the word. Thanks, y'all. Let's see how we're doing. We may have time, if y'all want to take a break. If anyone has any questions, I can take one question. And then besides that, we'll move on to another Handshake speaker. All right. So
you really made this wine, Noel?
Yeah, I made
You really did?
Yeah, I made it. I picked the grapes all the way to the bottling.
That's amazing, dude. Like you I Love Lucy did?
No, I'm not going to give my secrets here.
Okay.
We can talk about it.
That's really good.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, if y'all want to, get situated, get some more pizza, we're going to have another speaker from the community come up and talk here in the next few minutes. His name is Steve Webb. He is a fellow Baylor graduate like myself, as well as he has a PhD in computer science from Georgia Tech. He's been in the domain industry for a while, and is one of the reasons his company is one of the reasons why .io is so successful. Besides that, he is behind the Gateway Registry and Registrar, which .tx is part of, and also he's a co-founder of Impervious, which contributes open source software for Bitcoin and Handshake. So we'll give it a few minutes if y'all want to get some seconds, and then Steve will take the floor, and then we'll finish it up with a giveaway. All right.